this is Paul with Nth-Degree, and today I want to introduce you to C.wiz, which is our Cribl outcomes wizard. Now, C.wiz is meant as an out-of-the-box solutions for small to mid-sized deployments and a starting point for larger deployments. As part of a Cribl installation, you should have worked with a consultant to size your environment and project resource needs, and all of that is taken into account when running through C.wiz. It starts here from our client portal and from the ticket screen, but before I get into that, I want to set the stage just a little bit. So here we have a Cribl.cloud instance, and if we run over to our sources, we can see that we have 2 disabled and 2 enabled. We can see that we have 2 data routes. If we go to packs, we have a lot. I've never actually really counted those, but we can see that it ends with nth general functions here. If we go to our destinations, then we can see that we only really have 3 configured: a syslog, a default, and a dev null. So it's pretty bare bones. Now we're going to jump over here to a Splunk Cloud instance. And in this, we are going to see that we can go to manage apps here. There should be 37, I think, comes out of the box. Yep, 37 of those. And specifically, we're going to be onboarding Palo Alto through the wizard today. So we will look and see if we have any artifacts. No apps that reference the word Palo. And if we jump over here into indexes, again, a stock set of indexes. So we can see that we have 5 indexes, none of which are Palo Alto. In fact, they don't have the delete, so they are all stock. Now, on the back end, I have a data gen that is generating Palo data that is ready to start feeding on this to emulate the production cutover step. So, jumping back in to C.wiz, we're going to click on this ticket that was pre-configured with our data type, with our routing, whether that be Cribl Stream, Cribl Edge, Cribl Cloud, Cribl On-Prem. And then finally, our destination. We are going to send that to that Splunk Cloud today. These are interchangeable. So depending on how that ticket was configured, that could be Windows to Elastic. That could through Edge, right? That could be any source through any Cribl product through any destination. And just to get my mug out of the way here for a moment, the next button only appears when we've satisfied the conditions of the stage that we're on. And if any point someone gets stuck on this or doesn't feel comfortable proceeding, we can get directly on a consultant's calendar right here to discuss that very stage. I would hope that we don't have many people scheduling on the welcome stage, but stranger things have happened. So cool, we are going to start running through this right now. All right, so the first step that we need to do, this is actually going through Cribl.cloud, so we're going to need to connect our Cribl.cloud. You can see by this being filled out that I have actually already done that. Anytime that we need credentials that may be a little bit difficult to find, especially for someone unfamiliar with the technology, we are going to give this tutorial video here, which shows click by click, step by step, how to find what we need to satisfy these conditions. We're going to breeze through this because this has already been configured. Okay, next it's time to select a worker group. We have the option to create a new one if we wanted to, or we can use one of the 2 existing. This isn't going to let us use the default hybrid because it has no active workers. And it's not going to let us use the default on cloud because it has a pending change. So I'll tell you what, that change was just disabling an input. So why don't we completely revert that? There we go. Now it'll let us right through. So we're going to use the default cloud worker group for this source. The fact that that's taking a moment is a really good sign, because what this means is it's creating the artifacts that we need for this step on the back end. And if at any point we get an error on this, it will not allow you to proceed, and it will instead halt on the current. There we go. So we're going to set this to 20,000. Let me finish that thought. It'll halt on the current screen until that error condition is corrected. Okay, so 20,000, and we're going to send this over TCP, and we're going to go ahead and hit next. Now, this is where the data gen comes in. Initially, when we're testing a data source, we are going to route that to dev null because we don't necessarily want to put garbage data into the destination. And so what's actually happening right now is it is creating those sources, creating those routes, and it is testing the source to make sure that not only is data coming in, as we can see by the little spinny thing here, but also the data is coming in the format that we expect. So it not only tests for the presence of data on the source, but also the shape of that data coming in. Now, anytime that you've set up a net new source, it is going to take just a moment for that to come through. It also gives you the information that you need to configure this. So right now, this is going to be where we set this up on, or excuse me, where we point our panorama to and the port on which we're going to point it. Now, you may notice that schedule button appeared midway through this. It does give a moment to let the nanobots do their job before it gives an option to schedule forward. And in fact, we may end up changing that to be a little bit longer on first time source setups. Anyway, so if, let's say that this step required you to go back to, say, a firewall team and have Panorama configured to send this, and you just couldn't complete this today. Maybe you couldn't complete it until next week. So what C.wiz is going to do is it's going to maintain the state of of the progress of your outcome. And when you come back to it, it will bring you right back to the stage where you left off on. So there is no need to continue through the configuration of Cribl, through the initial port setup. And we can see here with this source verified that we have actually observed data on the input and it matches what we expect. So now we can move on. And okay, again, so configuring the destination. Now we are actually going to do some stuff with this. So first of all, I have already connected Splunk Cloud to this. And again, the video will show you exactly where to go to get the information that we need. This cloud forwarder package is going to come from right here. So going into Splunk Cloud, we want to download our Universal Forwarder credentials, and we can see that we have that. So we're going to come back. And then this is going to be our splunk.com username and password, which is required to vet this information and get it installed. We do not store this. The rest of the configurations are stored, but we do not store this information. This is used to connect, authenticate, and get a token. We also want to change this from pan logs. Now, what this pan logs is, if we jump back over to stream, because I'm really jumping ahead here, we can see that, where's my packs? Yep. So if we jump into this Palo Alto's pack right here, the default index for this, where are you, is pan_logs. We don't want that. We want to send this to an index called Palo Alto. And that could be anything. Would highly recommend setting that up as a test index. So we have our cloud forwarder package in there. We have our splunk.com username and password. And now some other magic should be happening on the back end. We'll get that just a moment. The communication with Splunk Cloud is a little bit slower, presumably because it's going through two layers. It's actually executing ACS command or ACS routine, or excuse me, methods against Splunk Cloud because we don't want to have our clients open up Splunk D and 8089 to the world. So we can keep all of this locked down. And again, the fact that this is taking a moment is great. So now it's looking for content validation. The process to install content on Splunk Cloud is different than it is on Cribl Cloud. So we are going to, I'm not going to make you go through this. This can literally take up to 10 minutes. So that we do call that out here. This will continue to validate, and we'll be back once that gets closer to validating.
A few moments later.
And there it is. So we can see that this is now switched over to installing content from verifying content. And that process takes so long because Splunk Cloud has very rigorous checks on content that is installed not from Splunk base. And I'll get into why that is in a moment. So it'll take just a few more moments before it installs that content. It's worth calling out at this point that C.wiz has the capacity to install packs from the Cribl dispensary, apps from Splunkbase, or content for both platforms from our internal mesh repository. There it is. So the content is verified and installed. I'll tell you what, let's fact check that before we move on. So we are going to jump over here to our manage apps. And remember before that we had 37 in there. Well, now we have 38. That is the Palo Alto Networks add-on. And cool. So if we jump over here to our indexes, we now have the index Palo Alto. One final step here. We want to go ahead and click next because we want to do a destination validation as well. So just like we did at the source, we want to make sure that the destination is receiving information and that that information has effectively been processed. And that's what that little flash there indicates. So notice from this stage, we don't have a next button. This is the last step, at least in terms of the wizard. We always want a consultant to come in and check our work. So we could, at this point, click schedule on this. And I tell you what, let's do that for Friday. And it's going to say, I'd like to discuss the setup complete. So now we are actually going to schedule that. And that's perfect. So we're scheduled there and we can go back and there's nothing else that we can do at this stage. It will re-verify that, but that's okay. Let's go over here and look at what has actually happened. So we can see that we now have a new route that has data flowing through it. If we go to our sources, we can see that we now have 4 syslog sources and we have this source enabled. If we go to our destinations, we can see that we have a Splunk load balance connected, and that has set up all of the certificates that we needed for that, which we've got right here. If we go into our packs, as we did earlier, we can see that we've got the Cribl Palo Alto's pack, which comes from the dispensary, and a post-process pack that we use on that from our own repository. If we jump into pipelines, it looks like that hasn't updated yet. So if we go back over here to the destination and we look at post-processing, oh, right, it goes through the post-process pack, duh. And now if we jump over here into Splunk Cloud, we can see that we have data flowing. Perfect. Yep, so there it is. That is C.wiz, which is our Cribl automated outcomes wizard. And yeah, we hope you enjoy. We're expanding this to additional technologies. Again, it's modular. We just plug in a source module and we plug in a destination module, and those contain all the logic needed to collect the information, needed to configure it, to configure the destinations, and to verify end-to-end the data is flowing. So thank you for your time today, and we hope that you are as excited about this as we are.